Here are genuinely good ways you can spend your time, and it has to do with this topic of Unc-slop.
How much can someone be expected to consume of the old stuff? What's realistic there?
There's a whole generation of people like Mr. Beast who don't have the proper foundation of Unc-slop in their lives.
Well, 94 seems to be the pinnacle where everybody was laughing at the same stuff. They thought the same songs were cool. And by the time the 2000s hit, it's a bit of a free-for-all.
Hey, welcome to The Great Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. I am Kevin Lieber. We're going to be talking about Unc-slop. I also have a little surprise for you. With me, as always, Mr. Matthew Tabor.
Well, I'm not the surprise then. Is the surprise for everybody or is it for me?
It's for everyone. It's for everyone, yeah.
Am I going to like it though?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think anyone will like it. That's sort of the fun of it, I think.
If it's about the giant swastika tattoo that you got on your back, I already know. The audience probably doesn't.
How did you find out?
Yeah.
Did you ever see Ben Affleck's terrible full back piece tattoo?
Oh, it's real? He has one?
I thought it was real, yeah. Isn't it like a tremendous phoenix or something like that?
I just looked it up here. This is really not very good at all.
I recommend looking it up. Yeah.
Well, it's hard to tell what it even is. I mean, you can kind of see a wing. It looks like in Game of Thrones when a dragon would get like shot out of the sky, like on its way down, all like crumbling and flailing. That's pretty awful.
Yeah, and for someone who certainly could afford the best of the best, I don't know. Yeah. What decision led to that. But here's before I get into my terrible surprise, the good news is, Matt and I have been working on a system by which we will now be live streaming video for the podcast. And in the future, when we'll be able to show things like Ben Affleck's back tattoo during the live stream, and you'll see it in the recording. And if you watch it on YouTube, then you'll be able to see what we're seeing. So as much as we love the looping, animation that we have on YouTube right now, that will be a thing of the past in the near future, and you'll be seeing our Unc faces from now on.
That's right. Yeah, and we'll put out the audio episodes as normal. That won't change on Apple Podcasts or anything like that. It'll be complete, continuity in that sense, and we'll release the videos on YouTube as well. So it's a recording mechanism basically to do it live so that we can have people watch on platforms other than just Discord, and also chat on those platforms too. It's really handy to have one junction where messages can come in from Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and we would see it all in real time or close to it in one place. So it just streamlines a ton of different things. And then it does give an example too, where instead of us just talking about a thing, Kevin could just rip his shirt off and turn around and show the swastika tattoo, which he doesn't have, by the way. I love these jokes because it's just the most outlandish possible thing. You have one of the cleanest brands, I guess, on YouTube, and that's not curated. It's just because that's you. You're the last person in the world who would get a tattoo like that, and I just find it endlessly funny to even bring up the possibility that you would.
Well, it's funny to how easy it is to have a clean brand when you're just so tremendously indifferent. Like overall,
Yeah.
so just like so generally disconnected and indifferent to everything that it ended up working in your favor when it comes to controversial issues. Here's my my surprise, my terrible recommendation for
Okay.
everyone. So I found out recently that in the year 1994, for some reason, it was decided that there would be one season, because it couldn't possibly have lasted more than this, of a RoboCop television show. Have you ever
Really?
heard of this?
No.
Not a cartoon, although in some ways a cartoon, but it's a live action RoboCop show. And I've been watching it. It's because it's on Amazon Prime. I have no idea if anybody listening to this has
Huh.
even heard of it, let alone seen any of this RoboCop show. But I have to tell you, I highly recommend it. Not because it's good, because it's one of these so bad, it's amazing. It's great. I really enjoy watching it because it is outrageous. It is like a parody of itself. That it's funny, it's stupid, it is outlandish. The ideas in it are very far-fetched. It in a lot of ways is like like a live action cartoon. It's very surreal in a cartoony kind of way with like the bad guys and the things that happen. Like RoboCop can't shoot any bad guys. Like the movies are very violent. There
Mhm.
are, they're R rated. They're very violent. This is a TV show. So RoboCop is not like blasting anyone's balls off. Uh, Instead, they come up with these extremely like trite ways in which he can subdue the bad guy, like literally shooting a chandelier so that the
Oh,
chandelier
no.
falls on his head. He
Yeah.
shoots, this is all like in the pilot. He like shoots the feet of like an armoire or like a dresser so that it
Okay.
topples over onto a bad guy. Like it's always shoot some inanimate object so that it falls down on a bad guy. And of course they can't get up anymore and they're out of the picture.
This is, like Rube Goldberg device criminal
Yes.
apprehension. Yeah,
Yes.
I imagine around,
Yeah.
like, season 4, that would be really tough, to do. You know, I don't know if I've told you this before, but I've never seen RoboCop.
You have told me that before, and it
Yeah, I
bothers
still haven't
me
seen it.
because it's excellent, and I feel like it's since you haven't seen it at this point, it's one of those things where you're like, "I don't even want to see it." Is
Yes.
that true? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a handful of these things. So I've never seen Die Hard either.
Wow.
Um, there's a list of movies where it's really strange that I've even managed to avoid it at not only at this point in my life, but because these things are like in the wheelhouse of what I typically enjoy anyway. Uh, eh, but RoboCop, Die Hard, there are a few of these things that I haven't seen, and at this point, it's almost important to keep, to remain ignorant. So every Christmas comes around, it's like, oh, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Hell if I know. I'll let Twitter fight about it. I don't know if it is or not. I've never seen the thing.
Well, it's important for you to understand that the thing RoboCop is unique, like, in the catalog of '80s action movies, RoboCop is sort of in its own little subgenre of category because it has these like heavily sardonic satire,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
comedic moments to it. Like it's
Yeah.
not played straight. It's not a straight action movie like Die Hard. Like Die Hard, you know what you're getting. It's,
Right.
John McClane is in the building and there are terrorists and he's got to save the day. There's no other element to it. RoboCop, there are like sketches basically in RoboCop where you're watching TV and there's a commercial for some sort of like absurd dystopian product or something like that. So that's kind of like baked into it. Yeah, the I'd buy that for $1 is a famous line from RoboCop. And all of that stuff exists in the TV show. So the TV show is kind of self-aware, maybe, in the sense that it's stupid. I don't know. Like, it's really, I highly recommend watching it. Skip the movies and just watch the TV show, because I mean, I can't imagine not being entertained by it.
There's a phenomenon with this too, which is like Dan the Latch just pops that "I'd buy that for $1" thing in there. With some of the things that I haven't seen, I've seen virtually every piece of them at this point in isolation. Every moment that matters in Die Hard, I've seen 10,000 times online in one way or another, or seen the references to, and that makes it a little tougher to want to go back and see a thing when I already know like every single part of it. But you talking about this show, do you know if it was like prime time? Do you know what channel it was on?
Well, I know that it is very poorly rated. So I was on Fox. So it was on Fox,
Oh, okay.
which
And that's
makes
early for
sense.
Fox.
It makes sense
Yeah.
that this is like a Fox show. But I wanted to compare it to, so the first thing I thought of, it's very campy. And when I was
Mm,
thinking of other campy shows, I thought of Xena, Warrior Princess, and Hercules. Those were
right.
very campy 90s like action shows. And both
Yeah.
of those shows are higher rated than
Oh,
RoboCop, the TV show. So if you want like some sort of apples to apples comparison to see where we're at with what this show is like, definitely rated worse than Xena or Hercules.
the entry on this show says that it was made to appeal primarily to children and young teenagers. And those other two shows you bring up, they were kind of young adult television. They were produced to be young adult, sort of the way, CW eventually made its shows. So I can see, I never understood the RoboCop appeals to children type angle. Whereas, like, it seemed to have enough stuff to make it, go in that direction. I'm like, I don't know. It's not a kid's thing,
They wanted to
but
sell
somehow it
toys.
is.
I think that's all it
Yeah.
comes down to. They wanted to sell toys, and they're like, "How can we sell RoboCop toys?" They made a cartoon of RoboCop in 1988.
Hmm.
So
Well, you
I
you
think that's what
mentioning
it is.
1994, I actually was thinking about it this morning because I was talking to you about something that came to be in 1994. A piece of technology that changed everything. But anyway, 1994 culturally, I think is an actual thing, a thing worth discussing. And if we want to have at some point a really low stakes, fun, semi throwaway, goof off episode, it should be talking about 1994. I don't know if you've seen the meme of the albums that came out in, I think it's a 44-day period
That was
in
91.
1994. That
No,
was
that was 90.
91.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was in 94.
Metallica, Nevermind, Pearl Jam, 10. That
Oh,
was
yeah. No,
91.
you're right. That was 91.
Yeah. Red Hot
Okay.
Chili
Well, I
Peppers.
swung and
Yeah.
missed on that. But like in terms of movies, it was across the board. Things like The Lion King that came out in 94 and made, everybody, but like everybody in the family happy. The other really big ones in 94. Oh, what was it? Like Dumb and Dumber. That was a universally, loved comedy. There was all this stuff, and it was kind of things were generally good too. We were middle school aged, just kind of getting there and coming off a really good run where, we were reasonably far removed from Desert Storm and the rest. It was just like the high point of everything culturally. Nobody was worried about anything. There weren't, problems in the world that were a serious issue. The big problems were like Tipper Gore wanting to put a parental advisory on a CD that used bad language. But anyway, oh, there's the meme. Yeah, it was 91. Well, 94 seems to be like the pinnacle where, yeah, things went off the rails a little bit after that. And year after year, oh, Forrest Gump, that's the movie I was trying to come up with. Forrest Gump was and still is an iconic, broadly viewed and understood and loved film. There really isn't one of those from the last few years of
Pulp Fiction was 94 too. Pulp Fiction was
Oh,
huge.
was it really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of the end or the beginning of the end of shared culture and good feeling. Everybody was on the same page about everything. Maybe, I don't think my mom thought Dumb and Dumber was a funny movie. Like moms probably didn't like it as much. But generally, everybody was laughing at the same stuff. They thought the same songs were cool. The action movies were action. The family films were not stupid. Each year after 94 seems to have a little bit less and a little bit less of that. And by the time the 2000s hit, it's a bit of a free for all. And I don't think that you can make the argument that 95 was as good as 94. And that's why I fixated on 94 when I was thinking about it today, where every year I came up with after that, I thought, yeah, pretty good, but just not quite as much good stuff.
Yeah. Well, before we move on to Unc-slop, let me say that the RoboCop show, before I move off of this, I'm still going to try to sell you on it. The cast of characters include a little girl who's an orphan who for some reason gets adopted by the chief of police and lives at the police station. And her name is Gadget. And she helps solve crimes by herself.
This is like a cartoon.
This is what I'm saying. Okay. So we have this little orphan girl named Gadget. There's also an AI woman who, an artificial intelligence, is created in the pilot, who then reappears and kind of speaks to RoboCop and helps him out here and there as sort of an advisor. Like a hologram appears of this AI woman. And one of the main bad guys is named Pudface. And Pudface is wearing this weird prosthetic mask, and he has a incredibly so many of the bad guys have kind of a Dick Tracy quality to them. I wouldn't even say Batman quality. I would say Dick Tracy quality, where they're that level of a caricature bad guy, where they have a disfigurement and a funny voice.
Right. Where your entire personality is defined by your haircut.
Yes, and that's your nickname, and all you want to do is thwart the protagonist. That's your entire mission in life, is to thwart the protagonist. So yeah, go watch RoboCop, the TV series. Highly recommend it. There are worse ways you can spend your time, but here are genuinely good ways you can spend your time, and it has to do with this topic of Unc-slop. This is a term that I think was just sort of birthed within, or at least has made its way into the mainstream cultural zeitgeist, the terminally online cultural zeitgeist in the last couple of weeks. If you're not online all day and you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's not that complicated. These are just the two most popular words of the last year sort of thrown together. Unc, which is short for uncle. So that's kind of a way to denigrate a certain demographic for being old and out of touch. Not quite boomer, but you're Unc.
Yeah. I think you just attained Unc status with the explanation. Jen says her kids just call anybody old Unc.
Yeah, we are Unc. I mean, that's not a question.
Yeah, as somebody who is an uncle, you get this increasingly. One of my nieces texted me. I guess she was at a game store that I think was, had card games, Pokemon, Magic, etc. And so one of the dividers in one of the boxes uh, abbreviated white uncommon to white unk. So I get this text on my phone with the picture of it saying white unk. It's like, hey, found you at the game store. I'm like, ah. So this is the experience that some of us have day to day.
Yeah, so there's a meme that's been going around with like the pointing soy jacks,
Yeah.
pointing at various like video game and anime and manga titles, and it says the second you turn 34 and you can't stop talking about Unc-slop. And the things that are considered Unc-slop in this meme are really from the late 90s and early 2000s, things like Halo 2, Final Fantasy 7, Evangelion, Diablo 2, Resident Evil 4, Cowboy Bebop, Ghost in the Shell, that sort of thing, Berserk. So this is, the era of Unc-slop that we're talking about. And something came out yesterday, I think it was, where Mr. Beast has been under attack for
This is where I saw
being
it. Yeah.
for being like a phony anime fan. Okay, this is what he's being accused of these days. Is that Mr. Beast is a fake anime fan? This all kicked off because he changed his profile picture on Twitter to One Piece and declared that he was going to start watching One Piece. And then there were rumors that he was being paid by Netflix to promote the One Piece Netflix adaptation in order to do this. And he didn't actually like the anime. He doesn't actually like anime in general, and like blah, 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 blah. Hopefully that provides enough context. Well, in response to these accusations of being a fake anime fan, he created a list of every anime that he's watched. Things like Free Ren, Attack on Titan, My Hero Academia, Solo Leveling, Jujutsu Kaisen, all of this kind of stuff. Now, my first reaction, and many, 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 many other people's reaction in the comments to this, is that it is very blatantly, completely lacking in Unc-slop. Like, this list is almost entirely devoid of Unc-slop. There are a couple of titles on here you could maybe consider Unc-slop, Death Note, and Hunter x Hunter, maybe. Although he just wrote Hunter Hunter, not Hunter x Hunter. There are like typos in this that are really kind of strange.
Okay.
I don't get
to
it.
Put that in there.
Yeah, it's a weird list. But here, there's a lot of setup here to get to my point. Okay. Here's my point with all of this is that there's a whole generation, I believe, of people like Mr. Beast, his age and younger, who don't have the proper foundation of Unc-slop in their lives. And they need Uncs in their lives to recommend them, to guide them, to Sherpa them into building the foundation for things like anime or things like film or things like music with the proper Unc-slop foundation. Because the way I see it, and then I'll pass it off to you, is I was thinking about it today. I was maybe this is an idiotic analogy, but I was almost thinking of someone who'd consider themselves a foodie, but all they eat is like fusion food. Like they eat Indian tacos. So they're eating like tacos that have like yellow curry or something, but they've never actually eaten like Mexican tacos. They don't have the foundation of the food. They like the fusion version of it. And it's like, no. We got to go back to the basics here. We need to feed you some Unc-slop and you'll be a better, more well-rounded person after having consumed that slop. That's my thesis.
Okay, that's actually a serious topic as you were talking about this. So when I saw that list, I looked at it and it was people kind of ripping his list. And I only, I know of many of the titles, but I don't know anything about them other than the one that I've seen. I've seen Evangelion. So I understand that, but not even its full context within the genre. Right. It's just happens to be a show that I've seen. But I looked at it and I didn't know Uh, Charles says, I don't know if I'm being honest here. Yeah, I'm being on. Oh, okay. About understanding Evangelion. Yeah, I mean, I had a great deal of help. A guy I know named Jack was a super fan who did tremendous analysis of the show. And so I was talking to him about his scripts for his videos, really going into the weeds about what meant what and why. So I had that Sherpa guidance with the one show that I watched. But I was seeing people rip on his list, and I thought, I really hope at some point Kevin explains this so that I can know who's right and who's not. Like I want to know the criticism of this. Whereas if it was something like, I think everybody feels this way with some genre or subgenre of music where they know it really well, and then they see the sort of fake fan who just listens to a really inorganic feeling, set of bands or songs. It used to be like this, at least. Well, that's what I thought was happening there, and I think the phenomenon that you're describing is hugely important and crosses into a lot of different areas where you have people kind of coming into cold to something and analyzing it or mashing it up for really the hell of it, with no meaning behind what they're doing. And that's what I took from the criticisms of his list, that it was like the personality behind whoever watches this was created in a lab. They slithered out of a petri dish and did not have, friends who introduced them to the thing, or people, along the journey with them, or whatever it is, where it was this really synthetic, inorganic list. Is that a fair characterization of the criticism?
Well, this is why this topic is interesting to me, because I have no idea, essentially I understood where to start with anime, because they're
Mhm.
we're a handful. I mean, you at the beginning of this podcast, we were talking about, sort of shared culture in 1994. Like, anime was extremely niche, but within that niche, there were like a handful of titles that everybody agreed upon that you had to watch. It wasn't this 7,000 option thing, and somebody watches anime number 6,722. And, it was like you had to watch Akira. Like, the fact
Yeah.
that Akira isn't on this list at all, that is the biggest red flag to me. Uh, it are people who are, watching anime who are 22 years old. Are they any of them watching Akira? Are any of them watching Ghost in the Shell? Like, those were the defining anime movies, when I started watching anime. And now this is my sort of Unc-slop Sherpa question, is like, do we need to create a list for the new generation of
Yeah.
actually, here's where you start. You have to start here. And then, you can watch your newfangled free runs and solo levelings.
All your fusion offshoots. Do you remember? This is I'm sidestepping the question, which I'm not doing on purpose to derail your point, but I don't think I've ever asked you this. Do you remember how you first encountered anime? How did it even happen? Because when I think back to that exact era of TV and stuff like that, it wasn't something that you could just stumble on and go down a rabbit hole. And I don't think I know how you first encountered anime.
I I don't remember how I first saw any anime outside of Voltron. That's kind of,
Hmm.
I think that was anime. Wasn't Voltron Japanese? Think somebody in the episode chat, please confirm whether or not Voltron was Japanese. Voltron was two series put together. Okay. But as far as Uh, I don't think I knew about things like Ninja Scroll. Ninja Scroll's another one that has got to be on this list. Like you have to watch Ninja Scroll. Um, Probably until the internet came along. Vampire
Okay.
Hunter D. Charles Kahn said yes. Like these are my sort of Mount Rushmore ish. Like this is where you have to start with anime. Vampire Hunter D. Like Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z. Like that's not on this list. That's crazy. Everybody knows that. You haven't watched any of that? Like these are the things I see and I'm like, what are we doing here?
Was his list what he's watched or what he watched and liked?
What he's watched. I think it was just a full collection. Yes, the
Oh,
title of it is Anime I've Seen. And it, I don't know if he watched every episode. Probably not. Some of these series are pretty damn long, but maybe he
yeah.
has. I don't know. There's no indication one way or the other. So I don't
I mean,
know.
he's not 50 years old. And this was a question I had looking at the list, whatever, is how much can someone be expected to consume of the old stuff, of the originals? Uh,
That's a good question.
what's
Yes.
realistic there?
Right.
Because one of the things I do know about the genre is that, oh, you find a show you like, there's a reasonable chance that it has 1,100 episodes. Like, it's not as simple as you have a long weekend and you plow through the thing.
No, but that's why I thought of movies first because you could sit down and you can watch an hour and a half movie anytime. You don't have to commit to 140 episodes of Inuyasha or whatever. That's not a big deal. But the movies thing, that's where I would start. And I don't even think there were any Ghibli movies on here. Like it's just a very weird list. Like Princess Mononoke is not here.
Yeah. I,
Um,
I saw that.
you
I
know,
saw that somebody
Totoro is not
played
on
it
here.
when I was in college. I did see Princess Mononoke, but that wasn't a lengthy, long thing, was it?
It's a movie.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember watching the film and I didn't know of anything else. Uh, beyond, I'm trying to rile up the weebs in the chat here, saying how stupid it is that you have One Piece and it takes more than one episode. One Piece, one episode, move on. That's my theory on this. And after we recorded last week, Kevin, you were gone. I was talking about how I like referring to anything animated as a baby show. There's only one animated show that isn't a baby show. That's Smiling Friends. All the rest, all the rest are baby shows. It doesn't matter if it's Care Bears. It doesn't matter if it's Boondocks. They're all baby shows, except for Smiling Friends. Even Rick and Morty. If it's adult animation, it's still a baby show, and you're a baby for watching it. Except for Smiling Friends.
All right. Well, certainly I don't agree with that aspect of it. Yeah, there are plenty of like Ninja Scroll is not a baby anime at all. You should not
I'm pretty
be
sure.
sure.
Is it animated, Kevin?
It is.
Then it's a baby show.
No, let me. I
This
have
is
a
the
story.
decision tree. Is it animated?
What?
If it's a yes, then the next aspect of the tree is it called Smiling Friends? And if that's a yes, then it's not a baby show. If it's a no, everything else is a baby show.
Right. Yeah, I don't agree with your flow chart there. I I watched when I was I think 14 or 15 years old. Watched Ninja Scroll with my dad. Luckily, my mom wasn't around. I don't know where she was, but I will never forget. I mean, there are some scenes where things happen in that show that I don't even really want to say on the podcast because it'll be
Oh
uh,
wow, it's that.
flagged. But yeah, there are like adult illegal things that occur that are very heinous. And I just remember him turning to me and going, What are we watching?" He was like, "This is terrible." And I'm like, I didn't
Yeah.
know that was going to happen. I was watching it for the first time with him. I was like, I got this movie, it cost me like $40 on VHS at the Sunrise Video or whatever. I want to watch this, violent cartoon. Yeah. Okay. And then SA is occurring. And
Oh boy,
it was a little awkward to be watching that
a little awkward.
with my
Yeah, I'll
dad.
tell you, there's no SA in the RoboCop animated series. That's what your dad was thinking. Why don't you watch something nice like animated RoboCop?
I know, I know. But I have another to pull back even further because this shouldn't just be about anime or video games or anything like that. Especially video games because I do want to say that I am sympathetic to people, younger generation not enjoying older games.
Uh-huh.
They are antiquated in a lot of ways. They don't have quality of life features that, if you grew up playing modern games, you would be used to. They're rough around the edges to go back 25 years and play a game. I still love them, but if someone who grew up with, being able to fast travel and like fast loading times and, whatever it is,
Yeah.
snappy menus, then playing a game from like 1996, you're like, ugh, this is brutal. But absolutely do not feel like that exists in music. And I absolutely do not feel like that exists in film. One of the threads that I saw recently that also tied, I think, into the Unc-slop, but this is like great grandpa slop, I think, at this point, is I saw someone freaking out after watching for the first time the movie 12 Angry Men at how
The
amazing it is.
original
Yes.
the original 12 Angry Men. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's great, but yeah, it's excellent. It's funny to me that it would, rock somebody right now.
Rocked them, and all of the replies in the thread were like people who were equally rocked. They were like, "This was incredible. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen." People just blown away.
Yeah.
So this is part of like another, uh, this gets a little, kids these days and shake fist at
Mhm.
cloud sort of thing. So I'm aware of that and prefacing it. So it's kind of, an annoying thing to say. But I'll say it anyway. I think so many things, especially in film, are so bad now. We're like at such a low point in movies that people who grew up watching all of these terrible movies, if they go
Mhm.
back and actually watch good movies like 12 Angry
Yeah.
Men or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or The Shawshank Redemption, their minds are blown.
Yeah. I believe, yeah, that is completely and totally accurate. Even talking about a film like a Forrest Gump, there's not really an equivalent storytelling in anything that I can recall from, let's say the last 5 or 6 years. You really do have to go back to get just beat over the head with something that magnificent. Uh, and I know that was, a book before it was a movie. Um, it's like the Ten Commandments too. That was also that was adapted from a book. I don't know how many people realize that. But that's another. It's one of the few DVDs I own. I own like 5 DVDs that I didn't have to buy for work, and a double pack of Ben Hur and the Ten Commandments is one of them. Um, yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in what is relevant now, and we've talked about books a lot recently, reading, literature, etc. Um, and it's what do you do when 10,000 new things are coming out each day? How do you keep up with any of that and still go back and hit the proper Unc-slop? Um, you've got to consciously seek it out or seek out the people who are into it to do that Sherpa bit and guide you through it a little bit. But it is totally an antidote to to having to search through a million things to find something good now. Um, we've talked a lot about doing that on streaming services, and what a job it feels like to find something that's worth watching. In reality, there's a tremendous amount that's just been sitting there for a really long time. That's super engaging. You talked many months ago about how you got really into Columbo, kind of out of nowhere.
Yes. Yeah.
That's an example of a show that did something really well, That's not at all relevant now. It's not new, other than throwback memes. Um, it, but you can go back. I don't know how many seasons it ran, but seems like there were a lot of Columbo. Uh, there's a huge body of work to hit there. Um, for me, I don't. I'm trying to think as I talk here about what the most recent book I've read is that isn't connected to somebody I know or somebody I like. Um, and I don't know. It's been a really long time. Maybe something like the book Cold Mountain. I think Jude Law did the movie Cold Mountain. That was really good. Uh, Let me see when that book came out. That came out in '97, and I think I got it as a gift in maybe 2001, give or take. So the most recent stuff I've consumed on that score is really 20 plus years old. Uh, there's an endless amount of established amazing things that are very old at this point. I don't need anything new. I don't need to wade through any of the bullshit. Uh, Not when I have many more incredible options than I have time to even think of reading. So I have fun talking about how modern publishing is full of like, the Lizard King seduced me stories. I think that's funny. I'm entertained by this existing, and I love criticizing it and the people who post a thing that's like, I read 300 books this year, and you zoom in and it's like all pornography. That's very
Yeah.
funny to me.
Elf smut.
But I'm not. Did you say elf smut?
Yeah, that's what a lot of people call it, elf smut.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot of really great stuff that's coming out every day. But I don't want to go on wheat versus chaff duty and come up with it. It's really helpful to find out the people who can curate for me, whether it's old or new, and I find that tremendously valuable. Otherwise, you are just constantly juggling and filtering and analyzing current thing, and you wind up with an experience that is really devoid of any foundation or any meaning. It is that example of some weird fusion food that's been created for the hell of it. Uh, Been created in some kind of rubric that's like, we're doing this just because we can. Well, that's really different than having something that was recommended to you, shown to you, given to you, that it came on after the thing that you liked, and you gave it a shot. Something that you yourself took a chance on, or just any number of things that have an experience that adds to whatever the actual thing is. And to bring it back, when I saw that list, even not understanding the genre at all, it seemed like somebody printed off a a ranking a ranking page that's like, here's 50 shows you need to watch to be an expert with a capital E, and somebody was like slowly going through and checking those off. It was inorganic, it was synthetic, and I don't know what the end game of that kind of consumption is.
Well, I don't know. I have no idea, and I don't know. There's no way for me to say like how he chose those shows, but I do think it's really important
Yeah.
to have an Unc to guide you. I have an anime Unc, by the way, a guy that I've known for a number of years who is deeply embedded in the anime industry. He knows like my tastes with anime, and when, something pops, it's on Blu-ray for the first time or something like that and I haven't heard of, or there's like a sale, I will DM him. I'll be like, "Hey, what should I get? What should I buy? What should I check out?" And he will just be like, "You won't like this. you'll probably like this, this, and this. And I'd be like, all right, sweet. And I'll buy the ones that he recommends. And 9 times out of 10, he's right. And I'm like, that was absolutely awesome because like he knows my tastes. And so like if you were to look at my Blu-ray anime collection, I think it's total Unc-slop. First of all, there's a lot of 80s and a lot of 90s, mostly those 2 decades. Um, it's usually very violent, or it's usually very violent, and there's a lot of fighting and killing, and there's fantasy or maybe some sort of sci-fi, whatever. There's a pattern. So when you're saying like I don't see a pattern here, if you were to conversely look at my collection, it would be like a very clear pattern of like, oh, these are Kevin's tastes. The same way if you were to like look at a music collection and it's like a whole bunch of heavy metal, you'd be like, oh, this is what Kevin likes.
Yeah.
It all makes sense, right? But what I would like to do, because this actually came up, I don't know if you remember, maybe like a year ago. It was a year ago. Was it like after we were in Austria? We were talking to someone who's younger than us. I don't want to dox, who's really into movies, but like every movie you and I wanted to talk about, he hadn't seen yet. And I started a list, actually. I started like Kevin's Unc-slop list of, recommended and required viewings for him of like, you need to watch this. You need to watch, like, you need to watch. Okay, you like movies? You have to watch The Godfather.
Yeah.
This is not an option. This is non-negotiable. If you say you like movies, you have to watch The Godfather. You have to watch Apocalypse Now. Like these are films that you have to see. You have to see, Scorsese's run of like Raging Bull and Taxi Driver and Goodfellas. You have to watch these movies. You can't not.
You don't have to like it, but you do have to understand it.
Yeah, you have to have some, especially because what you were saying earlier, the fact that something like Die Hard or something like RoboCop, probably to a lesser extent, they are so ingrained in the culture that you are largely familiar with sort of the greatest hits of both of those movies, whether it's like a famous scene or a famous setup or a catchphrase or something like that. There are a lot of those things. And if you have not seen them, I mean, I know you're at the age where you're like, I'm never going to see them and I'm going to plant my flag and never having watched them. And that's fine. I respect that too.
I will at some point. I will watch them at some point.
But here's the thing, Matt. Here's the secret about those things. They're really good. And they're really famous for a very good reason, because they're awesome. Like, you're going to like them. It's going to be a really fun, valuable, and useful way to spend an hour and a half to watch these movies that are freaking awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking about how I remember this conversation where you were talking about, the movies. It's like, oh, here's what you should catch up on from the back catalog. That's going to, it's going to make your current experience way, way better. But also, increasingly, everything is consumed in total isolation. You watch it on a Netflix or Crunchyroll or whatever the hell you're watching a show on, and that's it. And you move on to the next thing. It's about you consuming the thing, and that is the end. The more you familiarize yourself with the stuff that other people have decided is good and they like a lot of them, it stops being 100% about you and your experience of watching the thing. And you have a shared experience. And that's well, we just saw it play out with Mr. Beast's list, where he puts a list out that did not feel like a shared experience for the people who looked at the list. They did not recognize him as a fan, right? They thought he's not one of us. And that's in part because I think he watched the stuff in complete isolation. Um, I've been relatively isolated on the movie side because I simply haven't had it's a recent adult life thing for me that I've had people I talk to a lot who are into movies. It's been a long time now, but I didn't, I just didn't talk about movies with a lot of people for like the first like 25 plus years of my life. I just didn't. I didn't have people around that were doing that. Um, Books, yes, absolutely. Now, Kevin, aside from talking to you in the occasional conversation um, with somebody like Jen in the chat, I don't talk to anybody about books. Nobody reads. It's just to rip on something like Elf Smut. That's the extent of it. So these things ebb and flow. But the more you watch things like 12 Angry Men, the more you connect with people who have seen 12 Angry Men. Jaws is a really interesting one to me because I find Jaws to be a much scarier movie than anything that would be in the horror genre that I've seen that's modern. And I went on a sort of horror binge a couple years ago because I'd ignored it for so long that I just did a big catch up for like 2 months. I watched a lot of horror stuff. Some of it was good, and it's like, oh, it was good. But the tension that's in a movie like Jaws was much greater to me, much, much greater, in part because the premise of the thing is extremely accessible and boring in the sense it's like, oh, if there's a very big body of water and you go in it, something very bad could happen to you. That's about as basic as it gets. Whereas, some of the contrived scenarios in modern horror, a whole lot of things have to line up to create the problem that the characters are terrified of. Well, the beauty of Jaws being scary as hell is that there's no series of problems that need to line up. It's you literally going out swimming, and through no fault of your own, you encounter the most horrifying thing that is completely real in the world that can happen to you in that scenario. That's a different kind of fear. I wonder how many really young people, let's say under 18s, have seen Jaws, which came out in maybe 77. I don't know if that's
right. Sounds right.
76 or 77. So it's 50 years old at this point. You wouldn't think necessarily of a show that old being realistic enough to be scary. Special effects were not. 75? Okay. Yeah. It's not as realistic, especially when you're watching it in upscaled to 4K. That kills a little bit of magic because you can see some detail. But going back to Alfred Hitchcock style stuff, which is much earlier, that I think it's easy for young people to write that off and say, well, it's old, the effects aren't good, the techniques aren't good, the genre wasn't developed at that time. It's not nearly as scary as, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 31. It isn't as graphic, but it's a very different type of scary. Well, when you go back and put, a little bit of time and enjoyment into something like a Jaws, you not only understand that better, but you have a little bit of shared culture with all the people who have watched and been seen or been scared by or blown away by Jaws. And if you do that over and over and over, it changes your experience. The things you read and see, you process on a different level. You're better at processing them. You see an anime tier list and it means something to you. It doesn't mean much of anything to me because I have no shared culture with that at all. I'm reading a book right now that is extremely niche. I couldn't even get a copy in the United States. I had to order it from the UK because it was translated from Albanian to English by one guy who unfortunately now is dead. He was prolific. I'm not sure anybody has really picked up his mantle of translating uh, Albanian fiction into English like he did. But anyway, really tough to get this. And I was reading through it, and the style of it is so raw and stark that I was thinking, I was contrasting it to people whose writing I like. I've mentioned 1,000 times, I like John Updike a lot because his prose is absolutely effortless. It's not hyper flowery. It doesn't have to be, but it's a song. The whole thing is music being performed from beginning to end, this big long piece. Whereas this Albanian book is like 200 pages of what I imagine passing a kidney stone was like for you. Raw,
What?
yeah, just like raw wiener pain.
Oh my God.
Not
That
flowery,
doesn't
not
sound good at all.
glamorous. I mean, it is. It's fantastic in its own way. You know,
Raw wiener
how I
pain
would
is fantastic.
raw wiener pain.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's not my pain. It's the kind of the authors, but like that's the style of it. It's called The Loser. Okay. And that's this guy telling his life story at 41 or 2 or something. And his life is very depressing, whatever. And early on, he goes back and forth between his childhood, kind of a how I got to be the loser that I am right now story. And his school headmaster, canes him, beats him. And to get back at the headmaster, he wants to make the person the headmaster loves the most in the world feel pain, and that's the headmaster's daughter. To do this, he poisons the girl's dog, and it dies immediately. And it's this 12-year-old kid that puts like rat poison on a piece of liver to kill an innocent dog. And he just describes it as like, this is what I did, just sentence after sentence. It's been a long time since I've read a book that had that type of feel. I have nobody. I point all of this out because it is the antithesis of a shared experience. There is nobody who I follow on Twitter who has ever heard of this book or this author. There's nobody I can talk to easily. I'm excited to be able to talk to a guy who I know has read a lot of Albanian fiction because it's one of his things. He's a filmmaker and a crazy book guy. I don't even know if he has read it or knows of it, but there's a chance. And I'm holding on to the chance that I can talk to this one man in the world who has read this extremely raw book. Well, I'm okay at the age of 43 reading a book that the rest of the world hasn't. I'm not looking for social connection to such a degree that I need to be able to jump onto Twitter and talk to book talk about it, which I guess is TikTok, not Twitter, but you get what I mean. I can't imagine, though, what it would be like if everything I watched on TV, everything I read was in that type of isolation. It would be the most meaningless, bizarre existence. It would make consuming so much of it completely and totally useless. This could have been a fantastic alternate ending on the Twilight Zone episode with is it Burgess Meredith who's in the bank vault when like World War III happens, and he's reading a book in there, and he comes out and there's a library that's untouched. He has all the time in the world, and then he finds. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but he finds himself unable to read all of these books and be unbothered. That's its own really interesting twist and terrible situation and whatever. But what if he could read them all, and he had all the time in the world to read them all, and had nobody or nothing to ever talk to about any of them, or no life to live where you're thinking about any of these things? That's its own horror, right? So when you have the Unc Sherpa, when you have some guidance on Unc-slop and shared experience, you avoid all of this terrible stuff. You don't have to have a thing swimming around in isolation in your head about a weird and very unfortunate little kid poisoning a dog. You can watch Jaws and talk to somebody about Jaws, or read about it. You can say, hey, I like Jaws. What else would I like? Any number of social things. So to me, the power of committing to Unc-slop is actually unlocking the shared and social element of everything that is Unc-slop.
Well, and I've also thought, as of the last couple of years, I have thought, if you don't have like the good stuff to compare it to, so like if you're ordering this like Indian curry taco, and you think it's the greatest
Yeah.
thing ever, but you've never had like an actual or the original foundational traditional taco, how do you know that it's good? And that's something that I have thought when it comes specifically to movies, where it's like, oh, this movie is really great. And I'm like, it's not though. You think it's great because you haven't seen great movies. Like,
Yeah.
when I sound cranky and I know for a fact that I am on like a really, really cranky end of the spectrum when it comes to a lot of media, much, much worse than you are. I mean, there are so many things where I'm like, this thing sucked. And you're like, I thought it was fine. It is,
Mhm.
it was fine for what it was. And I watched it and it was okay. And meanwhile, I'm like, having a hissy fit, and I quit after 2 episodes of the thing because I'm like, I can't even deal with how garbage this is. And you're like, I made it through the whole thing, and it wasn't the worst thing ever. So, like, I'm very cranky about that stuff, and I understand that. But part of that is that I have like such a thick foundation. I mean, there was like a solid 10-year period where I just like watched all of the things, like not even just American film, like. And I've mentioned this before. I'm not like some cinephile, like Kino Corner or somebody who just like truly goes into the depths of watching, French movies and stuff like that. But as far as like grazing the top of all of those things, I have dipped my toe in Japanese film and Italian film and French film and German film and some of the more experimental stuff in the indie scene in America and documentary and all of these stuff, like a pretty, pretty solid foundation there. And throughout the years as well, like something that I was thinking of when it comes to like, where do we start with this? If you were to recommend something, I wouldn't start with anything black and white at all. I would not
Okay.
be like, oh, you have to watch Citizen Kane.
Oh,
That's
of
where
course. Yeah.
film
Yeah.
really started, was Orson Welles and Citizen Kane. Like, I would never, ever, 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 ever do that, because I think that you have to build your chops to a certain degree in which
Totally.
you can appreciate things like depth of focus or like mise en
Yeah.
scène.
Yeah.
And you can like then be like, wow, like Citizen Kane, which came out in like 1943 or whatever it was. Holy crap. Like I could see how that like really changed everything.
Yeah.
I have read feedback from people who like they will like forget watching a black and white. Like that's completely off the table. But even something that's in color, but from like the 1970s is equally off the table. That's like, oh, I
Yeah.
can't even watch that. It's
Oh,
just so old and boring. It's like, okay, I would also not start there. I would not start
yep.
with Rocky or The Godfather or any of like the major headliners from the 70s. It wouldn't start there either. Like we have to get uh we have to build a little bit of muscle there first. I would think probably early 2000s is where you would have to start, like just start with, like, I don't know, have you seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy? It's pretty great. Like maybe we start there.
Yeah, that's right. I just thought of a conversation that I can't remember if you were a part of. Um, so both Kevin and I, in the past, we met a guy. His name is Paul, and Paul has he's an accomplished film guy who worked on. Let's see, he wrote Liar Liar with Jim Carrey. That was quite good. He did the Little Rascals movie. He did a bunch of stuff in the 90s that was really cool. Anyway, he knows what he's doing in the genre is my point. And I had this conversation with him. I don't think you were there, Kevin, about working with his film students. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. He was at the time, so a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, he was teaching graduate students. And I don't know the exact class. I don't know if it was screenwriting or what. Probably was screenwriting. Jen says, "Oh, that Paul. Yeah. That Paul. We know all sorts of Pauls, lots and lots of them. But this is the Paul who was involved in these movies. So anyway, a couple years ago, he was working with graduate level students. So they would have been born around 2000, give or take. And he was lamenting that he couldn't really get them to watch old movies. And by old movies, it was stuff from like the 80s. I think he recommended that they go watch some John Hughes movies because that run, you talk about the Scorsese run, the John Hughes run in the 80s is its own really important thing to know about. And I don't know if I've ever met somebody who straight up didn't like those movies. They're enjoyable. But it was just off the table for these kids. It was like, why would I watch something from 70s or 80s? It was irrelevant by virtue of being not brand new. That was crazy to hear, because these were not people off the street. They weren't even like general creatives. The way I think anybody who listens to this podcast is. You may not care about movies very much, but you're generally into, if not creating things yourself, you're a fan of the people who do create things. So it isn't even that level. This was people who were attaining an advanced degree to work on films. And it was of no interest to them to go back as far as like the 80s to watch really established classics. And so I do think that bar is in a very weird place, because you're 1,000% right. And people screw this up all the time, where it's like, well, you've got to start with the Citizen Kanes. They do this with books too, where it's like, you've got to read Ulysses by James Joyce. It changed everything. You've got to read Madame Bovary. Well, you know what? We'll get to that. We'll get to like level 3 appreciation. We can start with something that you're a lot more likely to have a good time with, and it's a mistake to say, if you want to understand comedy, the first thing you do is get all the Buster Keaton you can get. Like, okay, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
So you're totally right that no, you do start with something like The Godfather or Jaws or just whatever the thing is, the genre is, and you expand from there. But what can you do when even that stuff is totally off the table and there's a total disinterest?
I don't know. It's so unbelievably disturbing. I was grimacing while you were explaining that, because I agree. Like, it's so much worse that these are film students, like film students,
Yes.
they have decided to go into crippling debt for at least the next 2 decades, most likely, in order to get a hyper-specific specialization in a thing that they have ostensibly no interest in. I mean, that's how I would
Yeah.
categorize it. Like, if you're unwilling at that point just to go back like 2 decades, 3 decades in watching, which is watching entertainment. It's not like
Yeah.
math problems. It's not like, oh, I don't want to do the
No.
math problems from the 1980s. They were explicitly boring math puzzles in the 80s. It's like they're movies. Like, they're fun to watch. They're
Yeah.
entertaining. They're funny. They're compelling. Like, you can't even sit there and watch that. That's of no interest to you. I don't know. I don't know what you do with someone like that. Other than I would say, congratulations for like damning yourself to the life of being a puddle, just being a shallow puddle that can draw upon absolutely nothing in the very thing you're trying to be an expert in.
Something that will eventually smell may grow in you if you were a puddle. That's like the best case scenario, is you may generate something greenish brown, a scum of some sort. But that's about the end of it. What the more, so this popped into my head as we were talking this conversation with him. And Paul would be wonderful to have on the podcast. Can you imagine that? Because as Jen says in the episode chat, he's a firecracker. He is an A-bomb. He's amazing and extremely funny. Extremely funny. One of the funniest
Very
people I've ever
smart.
talked to. Very witty.
It's very smart guy.
Encyclopedic knowledge, all of this. But I've been slowly remembering this, and what really hit me as he explained it is that it wasn't a rejection of those things, which I think I would have respected to some degree. Severely misguided, but I would have understood why somebody would reject all of those things. It was complete and total indifference. Total indifference, that it didn't even occur to them that there may be something of value in this stuff. And you're talking about Sherpas. That's what a really good teacher is, by the way, a Sherpa of something. They pass on whatever, hopefully in a way that matches you personally, so that it resonates. But they'd gone out of their way to expose themselves to a Sherpa and a real accomplished expert in the field who's saying, here's what you should do. Here's my Unc-slop. And they're like, why? Okay, but why? Nah.
It's so bizarre to me because, when I was in school, and I went to school for film, myself and, the other students at the time were ravenous about we took every single film course that the college offered. So there was a course on film noir. That's it. The entire semester was just watching the genre of film noir, okay? Which, spoiler alert, sorry, is all in black and white. Chinese film, German film, Mexican film, like
Yep.
literally everything. We're sitting there watching, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, like German expressionism from 1922 or whenever that movie came out, and loving it and being like, "You sweet, this is awesome."
Mhm.
Let me get this straight. If I can understand this correctly, me going to school is going to class to watch movies. This is the greatest thing I ever heard of in my entire life. I just have to sit down and watch, The Tin Drum, which is like a film that I never had heard of, yet like was so fascinating. I ended up, God, I don't even know how much I spent back then on the Tin Drum DVD. It was probably like $80. But yeah, just a totally different mindset where it was, first of all, this is amazing that this is what I get to go to school for. And then secondly, Uh, yeah, it was really cool to have the discussions after watching the film. Oh, what did you like? What did you not like? What did you notice? What did you think about, the lighting or, how this scene was composed or whatever? Like, that's the major. That's why you're going to school. That's what you're paying for. You're paying to go there. And then meanwhile, these kids like are completely indifferent to watching The Breakfast Club, which, you know,
Yes.
is like such an easy, it couldn't be an easier movie to watch on planet Earth than The Breakfast Club. And that's
Yeah.
just like of absolutely no interest. Okay. Yeah. Got it. I don't know what you do
I
with that.
wonder how. I don't know. I don't know either. I wonder how prevalent this indifference is. Um, One of the things that really skews our perspective is that almost all the people we know who are on the younger side are just the opposite of the people we're complaining about right now.
Yeah.
They're people who are really interested in all manners of creativity. They even like if they encounter something they don't like, they enjoy the process of identifying what they didn't like about it.
Right.
It's a win either way. There's no bad way to play any of it, and so there's an attitude that is prevalent in all of them, where they don't need to hear any of this. They don't. They understand the value in it. Um, that's a really slim percentage of, I think, people in that I say age bracket, but it's really an era bracket where their very first thought is not uh, putting themselves in the context of really a progression of anything. Like I got to scroll up to see who Charles. In the episode chat said Gen Z hates learning. Well, I don't think they hate learning nearly as much as they're obsessed with living and obsessed with their minute by minute life. How they, whether they like something or it fits their mood or whatever, and it's on to the next thing. Sort of the way I think cats I've had have lived, where it's like all that matters is I would like tuna right now. I am eating the tuna and I love that tuna. I have eaten enough tuna. I would like to sleep now. It's this like
Cat brain.
it's cat brain. It's just a constant stream where no 7-year-old cat is like thinking about what life was like for cats in the 30s. You know what I
Why
mean?
would it
Like,
care? Yeah. Why would it care?
why would it care? It's not even on its radar. It's not faced with the proposition and then rejecting it. It simply is so unconcerned and so isolated that it's just the tuna and sleep cycle. That is it. And I think that's obviously a severe reduction of my point. But I think that the newest era is a lot more akin to consuming entertainment in that same way, where it's what is this to me right now? And maybe it can inform what I'm going to do next, but nothing like we're talking about. I said that I came into film stuff late, and I did, but that also meant that I came into it with a ton of other stuff that a lot of film people don't have. As an example here, I became obsessed with doing a project about the film Battleship Potemkin. I went deep. This project never ended up being completed. But when I watched that film, I came into it with a great deal more knowledge about the historical situation that the film describes than most film students probably do. So I went crazy deep on that. But that's because I have the mindset, and I think it was so common as to be not even worth pointing out. Everybody had the mindset that the music, the books, the TV shows, the movies were part of something that this was a continuing moment of. And based on your personality, you may not care about the history regarding, the Potemkin stuff. That's fine. You don't have to care. You can just watch it and love or hate the film. It doesn't matter. But most people knew it was there. They knew that there were different levels on which you could appreciate something or enjoy something. And now the recognition of those levels seems to be, I don't want to say gone, but it's way less common that there's a recognition of them. And it's just, here's the thing in front of my eyeballs. What mood am I in? Is this going to fit my mood? I'm going to do it until I've changed the situation. I've had enough comedy for tonight. I've had enough anime for tonight. I want to watch, some Harlan Coben thing. That's it. It's tuna brain, tuna and sleep brain. That is the cycle. It's isolating, solitary. It's devoid of meaning. It means you're constantly in search of your next can of tuna or your next nap.
Stimulus.
And that's all it is. That's all it is.
Low grade stimulus. Low grade.
That's
Battleship
upsetting.
Potemkin, by the way, is one of those film student things you have to watch. There's a scene where a baby carriage falls down a whole gigantic long sequence of
The
steps.
Odessa Steps.
Yes, the Odessa
Yeah.
Steps. That is like one of those things where if you go to film school, it's like, all right, now we have to watch the Odessa Steps sequence and talk about it. It's foundational.
Yeah, and when you see it too, you realize like, oh, I've seen this 10 times in other places. Oh, this is where it's from. There's that, what was the Elliot Ness movie that Kevin Costner was in?
The Untouchables?
Untouchables.
Yeah, that's a good
Untouchables.
movie.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a long, long scene in Untouchables that is, however you want to put it, homage or rip off or whatever, that comes from that Odessa Steps scene. Charles says Naked Gun 3. I don't remember seeing that, but like, honestly, it's not even all that different from the kid in the wheelchair off the cliff in Mac and Me.
I guess it's spiritually similar.
Spiritually similar. Yeah. So this is a thing that's 100 years old that has been done 100,000 times since for a reason. And it's cool to see that and know that, this is the origin. But what if you don't care? What if the only thing you care about is this baby going down the steps in the stroller in front of me right now of interest to me? How do you create anything anybody else likes?
I can't help them. I cannot. Yeah, I can't help you. If that's your mindset, then I can't help you. What I would like to do is help the people who don't have that mindset. I would like to help the people who are interested in learning more about the creative fields, about what's available, about what's been influential, about like the culture that they are in currently, in which they're trying to create, in which so many of these things have been formative in building that culture. One of the things that I always found fascinating about the early episodes of The Simpsons, the first 7 seasons, we'll say, around there, that were so freaking good, is that those first 7 or so seasons are absolutely dripping with homage and parody of the types of films and stuff that the writers grew up with. Like the really famous episode where there's a monorail and there's this like huckster that comes in to sell, Springfield on giving him all their money to build this monorail. It was written by Conan O'Brien. It's very, very famous. That's The Music Man. Like Conan and like some of the other writers, I guess, loved The Music Man and they referenced it a lot. And he just took The Music Man and made it a Simpsons episode. And it became one of the most popular of all time. I mean, you see this in modern times with Smiling Friends. Like
Oh, there's a
Zach
lot of
is
Smiling Friends.
there are so many references that, Zach and Michael pull into Smiling Friends, whether it's God, the Jesse Ventura cameo. I saw on
Yeah.
Twitter like a week after a bunch of people being like, "Oh, that's a real person," like, and then sharing clips of who
Uh,
Jesse Ventura, like, "Oh, I never heard of him before," or whatever. Like, those guys pull in a lot of stuff from the things that they've watched and read and have been influenced by, and then, spin it and morph it and turn it into comedy for Smiling Friends. If you don't have that base, what are you doing? Like, how do you come up with stuff? Just some sort of
oh, it's hard.
lightning bolt has to hit you. Like, it doesn't work that way. Like, you have to have a robust foundation of knowledge of all of this stuff. And what I would like to do, maybe in a future episode, because this would take a little bit of, preparation, is to try to come up with a decent list of, like, we could just start with movies. Like, here's a list that
Mm.
Matt and Kevin agree upon. That's like, look, you need to see this, you need to see that, and maybe if we really thought about it, we could kind of come up with like a decent order for it. I don't know. But if there are people who need Sherpas, if they are all alone and they don't know where to start and they would like to build up their repertoire and we're the unks that they're listening to, then why don't we provide some Unc-slop for them to eat so that they get, because this is the thing. It's like there are references to these movies and all over the place. Like Rear Window, Rear Window was another one that Simpsons did where like Bart broke his leg and now he's like spying on the neighbor who like might have murdered somebody. I don't remember if it's Flanders or what, but like you don't have an appreciation for that unless you know what the reference is. You could maybe still like it on a surface level, and that's okay, but it's not nearly as interesting or enriching as if you actually knew what they were talking about, what the reference is, where it came from. And like I said earlier, this is the most fun homework assignment you
Oh, it's
could
awesome.
possibly ever be given by anyone. Hey, here are the greatest things you could watch. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's having amazing stuff served to you on a platter. And even if they don't all hit, they're gonna hit more than they miss. It's a lot better than relying oh god, I hate this. I just realized what the alternative, to the Unc guidance is.
What?
It's just the algorithm.
Oh,
That's it
yeah,
now. That is, everything that we're talking about only existed because there was no algorithm.
right.
There was
Yeah, it
no
was just people.
algorithm making suggestions, making connections that led to the next thing. You had to construct that with people, whether you knew them in real life or you simply just, trusted their criticism, their recommendations. The the OGs of what we're talking about were Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, making a show of doing exactly this, where they said, "Here's why a thing is good or bad. You should see it for this reason or not see it for that, and here's why it matters." And they popped that on TV. That was wildly popular. The concept of Siskel and Ebert being film critics was a decades defining thing. There wasn't even an equivalent in other types of media. Lots of books. There's been literary critics forever, but there was nobody that hit just general people. Like every household knew who Siskel and Ebert were.
Yeah, as opposed to like Harold Bloom or something. Like you'd have to be
Yeah,
in a niche. Whereas, yeah,
in a
it was
niche.
very normy. Like Siskel and Ebert were very normy.
That's right. And they were just doing a version of what we're talking about here. That this is something worth putting your time into, and here's why it matters. It doesn't take a lot, but if you don't have somebody at a distance like they were, it's not like Roger Ebert was picking up the phone and calling Americans and getting to know them and making recommendations. It's like, no, he just made a show. If you don't have somebody at a distance, or you don't have people who can actually, like your anime or manga oracle.
Yes. Oracle.
Which
I love that.
Yeah. I love doing this on books because I love the success rate that I have, where if I know the person, I can do a decent job of recommending books that they'll like. I can't do it with other media, but I'm okay with books. If you don't have that, you are at the mercy of the algorithm. And the algorithm has some data points about you, very powerful because they know what you've actually done. And they're mixing in billions of other data points. Well, maybe the recommendations are really good. Maybe the outcome of that is something that's really strong. But is it the process that you want? Even when it works, is it the process that you want?
Well, there's also the problem of limited catalog. So I happen to be of the opinion that a lot of these major streamers do not have a lot of great films available for streaming. Like they'll have, I don't know, like 10 really great ones and then a whole bunch of crap. Like really a lot of crap, like on Netflix and HBO Max. Like the stuff that shows up when you're scrolling through is not a lot of great stuff that I would put on this list. Not like, really seminal works that I would tell someone, hey, you really have to watch this. It's like, what's that shark movie? Deep Impact? No, not Deep Impact. No. There was a shark movie that came out in like the early 2000s where Samuel L. Jackson, Deep Blue Sea. Okay, I won't mention Deep Blue Sea. Thank you, Conrad. Yeah, you're scrolling through and it's like Deep Blue Sea, and you're like, okay, like that's a movie, but like I'm not, right. That's not going at the top of my list of like films that you have to see. So that's part of the problem, I think, with people doing this on their own, is that even if the algorithm is recommending stuff, it's like, does the catalog even have the types of films that, we would recommend? Like a Glengarry Glen Ross. Like, I think that's a great movie. I would put that on my list. Is that popping up on, Netflix? I don't know. Probably not. The another weird thing here that I thought of that I sort of wanted your opinion on is that there are a lot of franchises, since we are now in just the total era of reboots and nothing more, there are a lot of franchises that have made spin-offs or sequels or prequels or whatever of original movies that were fantastic, like absolutely perfect movies, and all of these sequels blow, or like they're okay at best. And if you grew up and your interpretation of like Aliens is Alien Covenant or whatever, you're like, yeah, that was okay. It's like, okay, wait.
Yeah.
The original Alien is one of the greatest movies ever created, without question, and probably, arguably, the greatest horror film ever created, the original Alien. Like, I would say that. If you haven't seen that movie, like that movie is so like unequivocally different than Planet Aliens or whatever that show is. Like they're not even the same, even though they're called the same thing. Everything about them is completely different. If you haven't seen the original, then your interpretation of that franchise is colored by the slop that's come out since then, right? And same thing with like the Terminator franchise. Like the Terminator franchise has made a bunch of crap movies. Well, the original Terminator and Terminator 2 are amazing. Like they're great. The two of the greatest action movies ever made. Rocky is like this. Like the Rocky sequels, they're okay for different reasons.
You're treading in dangerous water here.
I know I am. I'm stepping on your toes. The original Rocky is one of the greatest movies ever made, bar none.
Of all time. It's one of the greatest stories. If you even take it off a screen, the story that goes into that film is one of the greatest stories that anybody has ever told. it's nothing like the kind of manufactured conflicts in, say, Rocky 3. What's remarkable about the Rocky stuff, by the way, is that it came full circle. Rocky Balboa, the movie, was exceptional in dealing with the stories that mattered and telling them in a very good way. It's one of the best films to deal with aging that I think I've ever seen, and that's a really hard topic to make a good movie out of. It's the concept of, ooh, let's do a treatise on aging. Like, oh my God, it sounds horrible, but they pulled it off. They pulled it off. So there's hope. There's hope, but you have to go back to the original one to understand why even anything that followed it would have a chance to matter. This is really why I like some of the sequels as much as I do, because they're in the context of the first one. In isolation, some of them are terrible. They're really not any good at all. But being in the context of the first one, it rests on all the important things that happened there. I don't know how you approach things if you have this bastardized, semi-ruined concept of anything, whether it's a specific series, a specific franchise, or more broadly the genre, or even bigger than the genre. This thing is old.
Yeah. Yeah. And Rambo's the same way, I like the sequels, but
That's right.
they're not
Yeah.
one of the greatest movies of all time. First Blood is. Like First Blood's screenplay
Yes, it is.
is perfect. It is a perfect screenplay. You get all of the information that you need really concisely and naturally woven within the context of every scene that leads to the following scene and so forth and so on. It's great, great, great screenplay. And Jurassic Park, the original Jurassic Park, based off of Michael Crichton's great famous novel. Great movie. The sequels after that, you could throw it on and you can eat some popcorn and you can watch dinosaurs and yay.
Which
But
is
they're
cool.
not. Yeah, that's great. But, they're not great movies in and of themselves. So that is to say that I have a lot of sympathy in some sense for people who are like, I don't know where to start, or I've seen some of this stuff and it's okay. It didn't blow me away. Because then you see someone like this person on Twitter who watched 12 Angry Men for the first time and they're like, oh my gosh, this was amazing. And it's like, yeah, there are amazing movies. You just kind of have to go back in time a little bit to see them.
I think people seem to treat them, young people treat them with the same way they treat technology, where it wasn't very good to begin with. It was limited because, tech was limited. Pong is not going to, I love joking about Zork because it's so obviously a limited game. I hold it up as gaming supremacy because it's so obviously not. But technology, the old stuff objectively is not as good as the new stuff. The iPhone, 3GS or whatever is inferior in every possible way to the newest iteration of the iPhone. There might be some charm in an old CRT TV, but let's be honest, it stinks compared to even a cheap 4K TV right now. It's inferior. I think that they process cultural elements the same way. They definitely do with people. Is that there's no chance that this law or this society or whatever the thing is, this what role men played or women played or something in the past could possibly be as good as wherever we are now and wherever we need to be a year from now. That's dumb because people don't work that way, and the things that reflect people like movies don't work that way. Technology does. There's a reason why nobody's going on GeoCities to find new websites. It had its heyday. It was great when it was at the top, and GeoCities and MySpace and whatever, all of those things, they're irrelevant now. Well, books don't work that way. Movies don't work that way. The thing that I love about First Blood is that movie in 5 words is what happens when somebody says no. That is the core problem in First Blood, is saying no. Even, Charles says, effed with the wrong guy. That's part of it. That's not, to me, the primary part. He's the wrong guy for a lot of reasons, but he's a guy who said no. That distillation is very hard to find in modern stuff because it's been done. It's been, there's a great example of what happens when a guy says no. It's First Blood. Well, doing that again, trying to tackle that question is really tough to do now. So, well, what's the next option? You make it entertaining, exciting, just whatever, but you don't address the core problem. 12 Angry Men is another film that you can distill in one sentence if you want to. The old class, wasn't on the poster for Jaws. Wasn't it something like "Don't go in the water"? Wasn't that like the 5-word tagline of that on the poster for that film?
I don't remember. But probably, let's see. I don't see that. Maybe that came out later.
Yeah. What's the essence, the absolute essence of the stuff?
Jaws 2 was just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. So maybe that's what you were thinking of.
Yeah. That's simple. It's clean. It's essential in, the essence way, not the all important way. That's hard to find. That's hard to find now. And if you take James Cameron as a fantastic example of this, where some of his earlier work was about the essence of something. It was that core tight problem. I don't think there's as tight a problem in the Avatar series as in some of the earlier stuff. Steven Spielberg was a master at tight, well-defined premises and problems. George Lucas was pretty good at it. These are relatively modern people, but this old stuff is so good. Lord of the Rings is an ultimate, from the books to the films. Peter Jackson did a great job with it, of a series of tight problems, essential distilled problems that each person in this very complex scenario had. Game of Thrones flipped it on its head a little bit, where everybody had their own set of problems, but every one of them was a complete and total mess, and it was the opposite of clarity. And then seeing all these storms combine in different ways. Yeah, that's an example of that more modern take, where is somebody like George R.R. Martin going to sit down and say, I'm going to tell a story about a guy who says no. Nope, that's been done. So what am I going to do? I'm going to create a universe where all of these different people have their own serious problems. They can't handle any of them. Even the ones who think they can handle them have no idea what the consequences are going to be. And all these things take on a life of their own, yet everybody has to continue to live in this crazy world. Well, that's fine, but it's not what happens when a guy says no. If you want the really well distilled, important things about, about love, romance, etc., you have to go back. War, you have to go back. There is a reason that Jane Austen is still highly relevant. a little less so than 20 years ago when, Pride and Prejudice had come out and was making waves big time, whatever. But Jane Austen is not a modern writer. Well, she hit the essence of romance, especially from the lady side, complexities of it, a very, very, very long time ago. Modern people don't want to do that for the reasons I said. Plus, they don't want to be seen as derivative. They don't want to be seen as copying the masters either. There are a lot of different forces. So where do you get the most important stuff that you need to not only be entertained, but to secure the value of future entertainment and also maybe even live your life better? Watching First Blood right now, I actually saw it again. I've seen it periodically. It's one of those movies where I will load it up like every 2 years maybe and watch it. This is First Blood, Kevin.
Yeah.
Can you contrast John Rambo? This is rhetorical, but contrasting John Rambo saying no with the insanity of political hysterics on Twitter all day long and TikTok and all of social media? These are not people who have said no. They're people cosplaying somebody who says no. There's a very big difference between a John Rambo type saying no and the last video I saw of some, out of shape woman in her bathroom stuffing, 9mm cartridges into a magazine, and it was weird. Right? It was a really like weird, unsettling video. Well, that's not just somebody saying no. That's theater kids doing an exercise of somebody who says no. You got to go back to find the distilled stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with that I really appreciate with a lot of the older stuff is that there's not constant talking. Like there's very little dialogue in First Blood. The tremendous difference between like John Rambo's character and what you're talking about is that he's pretty silent. He's like almost a silent protagonist from a JRPG. Like he's just walking into town by himself, doesn't know anybody, like, I don't know, wants to get a sandwich, and then he starts being harassed and things escalate from there. But he wants to be left alone and no one will leave him alone. And like that, is what snowballs in First Blood. As opposed to somebody who is, looking for a fight. Like he's not looking for a fight. He's looking for a sandwich. That's a very different motivation. I did look up
alone to the max.
Completely. The tagline for the original Jaws was "You'll never go in the water again." So you were on the right track there, and that's an incredible tagline. Yeah. You'll never go in the water again. That's killer. I mean, that's like a YouTube head title of a video that gets 50 million views.
Yeah,
it's killer.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you'll never go in the water. Even the Jaws 2 one is fantastic. That you said that, like, just when you thought it was safe,
right?
All of these are. I wonder what the Jaws 3 tagline was. The Jaws 3D tagline was. As it goes further and further.
The third dimension is terror. That's what it was. The third dimension is terror. So much worse. A million times worse.
It doesn't mean anything, does it?
No. I cannot do anything with that information. I can't relate to it. It's just words. It's stupid. I mean, you're describing the film. You're not describing me or my life or how I interact with the world. Like that's what's great about the original Jaws ones, is it's telling me. And this was a thing that happened at that time where people were really scared to go, swimming in the ocean because of that freaking movie.
I still know people. I know somebody who will not go in the ocean. She's a few years older than me, but will not go swimming. Not even like walking in a foot of water on the beach. Won't do that because nothing good is going to happen with contact with water in her mind.
All right.
Yeah, but when I asked, like, really, you don't want to, go swimming? It's like, there are sharks in there. And I was pointing out geographically why this is not actually a high risk area. It's like, this is not like the Gold Coast of Australia where you're floating food. No, it doesn't matter. It is a 1 in a billion chance of a shark making its way to that spot would have been too high. I don't think that probably pops into somebody's head without without Jaws having existed.
Probably not. No, considering the amount of shark bites annually is really low. It's so much lower than
Yeah.
people would guess. And hippo deaths are way higher than people would guess. It's one of those weird things that when you read too many things online, your brain gets filled with stuff like that. But those are animal deaths are something I like to tell people because it's always shocking. Like, oh, really? Hippos are responsible for like dozens more deaths than sharks every year. Yeah, yeah. And then mosquitoes is like literally hundreds of thousands of people.
God.
It's
Yeah,
horrible.
it's the worst.
Yeah, by far.
But the
Nothing is
prospect of
close.
of yanking the wheel because a squirrel or chipmunk runs across the road and you panic and yank the wheel and hit a tree. I'm sure many, many, many more people die from
Right.
goofy stuff like that than even, properly dangerous animals.
Yeah, alligator bites. Well, I think
Exactly.
we're at almost 2 hours, and this shows the importance of Unc-slop. I hope that and this is our intro to Unc-slop course that you've just listened to.
Yeah.
This is Unc-slop, not the itinerary. What is it called in college when you have a syllabus? This is the Unc-slop
Yeah.
syllabus. And I am genuine about the fact that I would like to put together some sort of, for those who actually are interested and have some sort of appetite for being guided on things that are good, of just putting something out there because, why not? If one person who's listening says, oh, I actually would like some recommendations. I mean, I did this when I started reading, was like, where do you start? Oh, I want to start reading. Okay, great.
Oh, yeah.
There's 4 billion books. What will I like? Well, I have no idea. Okay, great. That makes it that much harder. It sucks. It sucks a lot. And you have to talk to people and you have to try things. And maybe you don't like a thing and you tell that person and you say, okay, try this instead. But either way, like I said earlier, it's the most fun that you can have with any sort of homework assignment in the world. Unless you're, one of Paul's students who won't even approach the idea of watching something from 1987.
We didn't even broach the how enjoyable it is to be the Unc. This has been, the whole thing has been why you should bother with Unc-slop, right? Like what's the value in that?
Yeah.
But let me tell you, providing the Unc-slop, when you hit the point where you are the Unc-slopping,
it's I'm the Unc now. I'm the captain now.
I'm the Unc now.
I'm the Unc now. That's great.
That is its own level of enjoyment. I mentioned this with books. I have recommended many more books to people than I've read at this point. Like I'm not so immersed in reading that I'm just churning them out, 3 times a week. Like, no, I'll have the conversations about them. And I enjoy at this point talking about books more than I do reading them. In that type of media, I have made the transition from needing the Unc-slop list to making the Unc-slop list. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I've graduated.
Yeah.
And that it's just important to know that yes, there's another side of this. When you cross the threshold, it's amazing. It's so much fun.
Yeah. You graduate eventually to Unc-slop Sherpa, but you have to start somewhere.
That's right.
And
Sling and slop.
in a future podcast, we'll help you on that journey. So, all right, we're out of here. Until next time, we will see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% of that goes directly to keeping episodes going every week. And the recent support has been amazing. Sidpoke, NRM, Venture Addicts, Weezer Good, you all really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and the Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. And thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Clemente de los Santos, Dan the Latch, Demetrius Andrews, Erica, Ferry-kun, Jen Mafasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Monahim, Natsu, Penny Piddler, Ryan Steer, Ryan Kinder, Samuel Manser, Sean S., Sean Malone, and Tom Videover. And a tremendous shout-out to our elite baby gang commanders. Atrocious Scuff, Kat, Dojangles, Graham Robertson, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Orange Vanilla Coke, Patrick Pister, TCU's personal pilot, Andy, Ryan Carroll, Baseweight, Vinthos, Yeetus Deletus, Jonas Walter, Nathan Robinson, and of course, Trev's Dead. You are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer, editor Ben Webster, Minecraft mogul Laterman, Discord kitten wrangler Conrad, and producer emeritus Dan Yosua. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme. Thanks to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it, and thanks to Main Gear for powering all our PC endeavors. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.